The engine technology is pretty interesting. Some of the things that are going on there to, enable spark ignition operation on jet fuel or hybridization of engines, and of course, reducing cost and improving reliability. There's lots of work going into that. And there's a lot of competition in that propulsion market too.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 274. Where do you go when you need hardware solutions for your UAVs? Today's guest has the answer. Bob Schmidt is founder and president of UAV Propulsion Tech, an unmanned aerial vehicle hardware solution provider of nearly everything having to do with UAVs. The company markets global UAV technology to the defense and commercial UAV markets. These include commercial off-the-shelf and custom hardware solutions that are flying on several high-end global UAV platforms. Bob has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Lawrence Technological University and a Master's of Science in Administration from Central Michigan University. He also has more than 30 years' experience in automotive propulsion, fuel systems, and aerospace UAV hardware solutions. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Bob talks about UAV propulsion tech, the UAV hardware supply market, and he provides his perspective on the growth of the drone industry. But before we hear from Bob, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. So let's learn about the UAV hardware solutions market with Bob Schmidt of UAV Propulsion Tech. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Bob to introduce himself.
Yeah, this is Bob Schmidt. So I'm a mechanical engineer, spent 20 years in the automotive business as a fuel system engineer, mainly fuel delivery systems, but this transition to direct injection and then propulsion systems for auto, marine, power sports, which eventually led to my first UAV activity in 2003. That was a direct injected UAV engine that could run on heavy fuel and was a collaboration between Hertz and Orbital. This also led to the start of my UAV business in 2007, which is UAV Propulsion Tech.
What does UAV Propulsion Tech do?
Well, I currently represent 15 different global organizations to market their advanced UAV technology to U.S. defense and commercial markets. Some of the hardware also sold to the flying car taxi markets. Started in 2007 with Orbital and Hertz as my first rep clients. But then I added new solutions each year. So these include Volt servos, micropilot autopilots, DST control EOIR gimbals, Sky Graphics and Parazero rescue parachutes, Reventec fuel level and flow sensors, e-propelled electric motors and generators, Neva Aerospace electric turbofans, Senup hyperspectral cameras, Eli airborne systems, pneumatic launchers, and parachute release mechanisms, HES energy fuel cells, fuel-safe tank systems, and then Alpha unmanned ground control systems.
You're sort of like the spare parts guy for the drone industry.
Yeah, definitely. I keep adding different solutions every year, so it has grown quite considerably over the last, 13 years.
Are all of your suppliers international?
Mainly. Most of them in Europe, so, Germany, France, UK, Sweden, Finland. The autopilot companies in Canada, the fuel cell companies in Singapore. Do have one company, the fuel safe tank system company, is in the U.S. And that's actually a good fit too because of my background in the automotive fuel systems. So I work with a fuel pump company in Austria and then work with this fuel tank company in Washington, and we can do complete tank systems. So either blow molded or bladder tank systems for UAVs.
What type of UAVs are you supplying?
Most of my activity is defense. So I do a lot of work with the defense prime. So I would say it's some of it's less than 55-pound class, some larger. Of course, a lot of the flying car applications are larger. But we do some multi-captor work too, some heavy lift multi-captor or even transitional aircraft where they vertical takeoff and landing, but they either transition or they have, multi-captor motors on the wings kind of things. So cover lots of different type of aircraft in different markets.
From your perspective as a supplier, what can you tell us about the market and some of the trends?
Yeah, for trends, I guess in the defense market, it's really all down to reliability to keep the UAV in the air, protect the asset and payload and mission. For propulsion, you always need good power to weight ratio, low fuel consumption, low noise signature, and then high reliability, high TBO or time before overhauls. So, the amount of hours before, you have to replace the pistons, cylinders, bearings, that type of thing. And then cost is becoming an issue even on defense because a lot of the contracts are going for services or where they provide cost per hour type of services in the field. For the commercial markets, it's, a lot of these guys are looking for U.S. hardware sources to protect supply, especially during the recent COVID-19 impact on hardware coming from Asia. Also looking for redundancy, especially when looking at the flying larger aircraft over civilian populations. We have some redundant servo solutions and redundant autopilot solutions for that market. The flying car taxi market is also, I guess, expanding our business. And these guys are looking for larger servos, including, the redundant and OPV or optionally piloted vehicle solutions where you have a electromagnetic clutch allowing you to, disengage the servo for piloted operations. So that's kind of where I see some of the trends at the moment.
I would imagine that your typical orders are large quantity orders. Or do you get orders for one or two items?
Yeah, we do a lot of ones and twos too. I mean, you got to be involved initially in their development to get on the aircraft. So in my business, I'm more of a middleman technical sales guy in between the rep client and the customer. In the end, the customer typically orders directly, and then I support that sale, from program management and customer sales support.
What have been some of the challenges in growing your business?
Yeah, I guess the challenge at the moment, I guess for everybody, is we can't really travel to visit our customers or, the rep clients. But we've still been very busy and been maintaining communication through video conferencing. I mean, most of the companies out of Europe have still been producing. So we're still having a lot of activity, even though a lot of people are working from home. I think military budgets may be impacted by the, massive government debt that was just added by the COVID-19. I guess we'll see how that impacts things. We also have some drone delivery customers that are mainly operating outside the U.S., but some have started some U.S. deliveries. So we need the FAA in the U.S. and, EASA in Europe to develop consistent regulations for, operation and controlled airspace and protects everyone, but also allows this market to grow.
Are any of your clients involved with drone delivery?
One client in the public domain, the Zipline, uses Volt servos. So, yeah, we are doing some work in that market. Mainly, a lot of that stuff is commercial delivery. And some of it's other, delivery of products to ships for the military also. So, yeah, we are tackling that market also.
What's your perspective on urban air mobility?
It seems like there's a lot of companies working on aircraft for that market and, including the big ones like Boeing and Airbus. But there's also a lot of VC capital going into that market. Seems to be a lot of funding, a lot of neat aircraft designs. I think it's going to be one of those things that maybe the smaller guys drop off, or maybe there's some consolidation, kind of like in the early days of the UAV market when, some of these defense guys were buying up the smaller UAV companies. So, yeah, there's a lot of great activity going on. Pretty interesting looking aircraft. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Based on what your clients are buying, do you see any new trends or market applications on the horizon?
I don't know if I see any new markets. There's been a lot of markets that people have been trying to go after on the commercial side for probably the last 10 years that haven't significantly materialized. There are people making money on it, as far as agriculture applications, utility surveillance, or inspection. I mean, there's work in that area. Definitely drone delivery in the last 5 years, I think, is really expanded. I think the defense is consistent. Maybe there's some some more swarming stuff that's coming on the horizon that you see out in the press today, and they're always expanding technology for those applications. But, cost is becoming more critical too, as the commercial applications are getting pretty good technology and capabilities of off-the-shelf drone compared to what people were buying 20 years ago is pretty amazing.
What would you say is the most interesting product that you handle?
My experience mostly is on the propulsion side. So, I originally was working with Hearth and Orbital. I no longer work with them, but I'm now working with a company called Suter Industries. They're based in Switzerland, and they have some advanced UAV engines that are on the market now, and I'm helping them market. But the engine technology is pretty interesting. Some of the things that are going on there to, enable spark ignition operation on jet fuel or hybridization of engines. And of course, reducing cost and improving reliability. There's lots of work going into that. And there's a lot of competition in that propulsion market too. Also on the electric motors, I work with ePropelled. It's a U.S. manufacturer that has also a technical center in the U.K. But they have some advanced electric motor technology also that could be used for, lift propulsion, as well as using that technology for starter generators on piston engines. So that's pretty exciting too. We're getting lots of interest in that, especially as U.S. companies are trying to get away from Chinese-made motors, especially if they're trying to sell into the military market with their drone or UAV solution.
Is the way that you've structured your business typical within the industry? Are there a bunch of other Bob Schmidts out there doing this with different companies, or is this unique?
That's a good question. I do have some competition. There are some other companies that, maybe they produce a part, but then they also have rep agreements with other component suppliers. There is another company that also has some supply agreements, so you can order catalog items, kind of like a hobby shop, but more high-end UAV kind of components that you can order off the internet. I think most of my hardware, though, it's a technical sale, and there are some off-the-shelf hardware that I do sell, like servos and things, but sometimes we have to do some customization, the propulsion systems. Typically, there's customization involved in order to optimize the performance for the propeller and the fuel consumption for their cruise profile. And so I think my business probably is unique from that standpoint, I would think. It's not just a selling nuts and bolts and that type of thing. It's typically there's, some engineering support needed from the rep companies typically.
How did you transition from the automotive industry into the drone industry?
It was just coincidence, to be honest. I've worked with Orbital since 2000, so they have a unique direct injection technology, and it was being used in the automotive industry, or we were trying to get into the automotive industry. A lot of people were evaluating that technology, and we had some applications where the military wanted to spark ignite jet fuel for safety logistics reasons. So we applied that technology to a Hearth aircraft engine and did some customer demos around the world. And that led into, basically the Skeldar heavy fuel engine. And that collaboration ended eventually, and Hearth is doing its own thing, and Orbital continues to supply heavy fuel engine solutions to the defense market. But that was kind of a transition, I would say, from probably 2007. So initially was working with some UAV stuff in 2003, but still supporting some other non-UAV activities. And then 2007 was the transition of my business and adding additional solutions to that business.
Now, coming from Michigan and working in the automotive industry, did you also have a passion for cars?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Michigan definitely is a car state. Everybody's got an old car in their shed, it seems like, especially out in the country, that they're working on. And, you have your Woodward Dream Cruise and even the engineering school I went to Lawrence Tech. It was heavily automotive focused. So, yeah, it was interesting. I love the automotive business and love the time I spent working in that business on fuel systems. But the aero side's also very interesting, and I get bored easily. So I guess the second half of my life, I'm working in the aero side.
How does working in the drone industry compare to working in the automotive industry?
It is similar from the standpoint of the drone industry. Reliability is very critical, just like it is in a car. I remember, working on fuel pumps, doing durability testing in different fuels and Weibull analysis to see how long things are going to last. And, as you know, it's very critical. If you have a recall on a product, it's going to be very expensive for the automotive supplier. Well, if you got something flying in the air, if you have some reliability issue, the thing's could potentially drop out of the sky. So you are going to lose a very expensive asset, or it could hurt somebody, or you're not completing your original mission. So I would say it's similar from that standpoint, from a reliability standpoint. Engineering is similar. You got to do design and improve things out. But yeah, I think that's probably the key similar.
What do you attribute to the success of your business?
I think the success has been adding several hardware solutions and then the knowledge of those solutions to be able to respond to my customers' needs. In the early days, it was mainly propulsion focused, but now I'm fortunate to be able to supply hardware, like the Volt servos that offer solutions for defense, delivery, and flying car taxi market. You have to really do your due diligence, though, when you're trying to add these companies to make sure you're providing the best solution for your customer. I mean, I typically am looking for, I'd say, a smaller company, maybe less than 10 million in sales kind of thing, that has some unique technology, typically offshore, and doesn't have any support here in the US, and they're looking to expand into the market. So that's kind of the niche for my market or my business, and how I add other companies to that business.
How much time do you typically dedicate to researching new companies?
That's a good question. I would say it all depends. Some companies have reached out to me, and then some I've searched. Like the gimbals, the gyro-stabilized gimbals, I was looking for a solution and did come across the DST Control company in Sweden. Some of the other ones, are based on maybe somebody had a relationship with my engine company, and they were looking for a U.S. representative. So some of those contacts came through the existing relationships I already had with these rep clients.
Is this your first business, or did you have others before this?
No, it's my first business.
What advice would you give to others based on your own experience?
Yeah, I think the big thing is you have to do your research to understand the technology and markets. Unmanned Systems Technology magazine is probably the best technical magazine on the market for UAVs. Also attend trade shows to learn more about business. The Exponential show is probably the biggest UAV show in the world here in the US. There's also defense shows like the SOFIC there in Tampa, Special Operations Forces, have UAV companies that exhibit. AUSA, the big Army show, that also have defense companies that produce UAVs exhibiting. Even the global air shows like the Oshkosh, Paris Air Show, Farnborough, Dubai, Singapore, Australia. There's a lot of those shows. Just walking the show and checking out the technology of the guys developing the UAVs, as well as all the suppliers that are providing solutions into that market. It's very kind of helps you understand that market a lot better to see where you want to, I guess, hang your shingle.
And obviously, you've had the opportunity to do some international travel.
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I got a lot of travel, and luckily before things were shut down. But yeah, typically go to Europe mainly, and that is to visit the rep companies. Sometimes we have customers visiting. And also to attend some of the trade shows, the global trade shows or air shows, which also kind of helps try to find new customers.
What strikes you most about Europe or the European companies in the UAV space?
I think it's a good area to go to find advanced technology for, some specific technologies. I mean, there aren't a lot. I mean, there are servo suppliers out there, but a lot of those are either the low-end RC companies. There aren't a lot of the high-end servo companies that cover the broad range of products like the Volts solutions. So I think they do have a lot of technology. They do know how to work globally because most of the time they're not just selling into Germany or selling into France. So they do know how to work as an international organization, and they're great to work with, actually.
How has the coronavirus impacted your business and workflow?
I mean, other than the travel part, it doesn't necessarily change my workflow because I've basically been working from home since probably 2000, so 20 years. So that part is easy. It's just the face-to-face. I mean, we all are doing these Zoom meetings or video conference meetings, and that is nice to get some connection. But, being face-to-face sometimes is easier to resolve open issues. So it'll be better when that happens again. But at the moment, we're still chugging along, and business actually has been pretty good even during the shutdown. So I hope it continues. And we'll see when travel opens up again.
What do you enjoy most about the business?
There's a lot of very interesting applications. The technology is always changing. I'm an engineer, so I like new technology. I like that it is a challenge sometimes to understand what the customer wants and figure out the best solution for them. So I think that's probably the most interesting part. And then also being able to travel and visit a lot of these companies kind of is the icing on the cake.
What do you know about the industry today that you didn't know when you started?
Initially, it was focused on the defense market, but now the drone delivery, the flying car and taxi markets have been growing dramatically in the past 5 years. So I think that part is expanding, interesting, and I guess adding some excitement to the business.
And for my final question, Bob, what message would you like to leave regarding the drone industry?
I guess in closing, the UAV business is a very exciting industry. When I was going to engineering school in Michigan, I just assumed I'd be working in the automotive industry my whole career, as a lot of Michigan people do. So this drone, UAV, flying car market stuff is very interesting and exciting. And the technology is also advancing pretty rapidly. So, if you want to learn more about my company, the best thing to do would be to go to my website, UAVPropulsionTech.com. Hopefully, if Exponential still goes off, I'll have a booth in Dallas if the conference continues, if any of your listeners are planning to attend that show. And I really, really appreciate you inviting me to, tell your listeners more about my business.
That's it for episode 274 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Bob Schmidt of UAV Propulsion Tech. I want to thank Bob for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about UAV Propulsion Tech or want to connect with Bob, check out the website at uavpropulsiontech.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.